Hello, this is Professor Angel, and we're going to talk about fragments today. So the first question you probably would like to ask is, what is a fragment? And very simply, a fragment is an incomplete sentence. And that means that an element that is needed for a sentence to be complete and comprehensible is somehow missing. And if I were to ask you on a quiz or a test, what is a definition of a fragment? All you need to do is write those two words down, incomplete sentence. So what elements does a phrase need to be considered a complete sentence? Well, a complete sentence has to have three elements. And those elements are the subject, a verb, and a complete thought. The subject, of course, is who or what the sentence is about. The verb and the complete thought work together for the phrase to be comprehensible to the reader. Let's take an example. If I would say to you, clapped loudly, you would be a bit confused. You would think, well, who? Who clapped loudly? What do you mean? And the reason you would be confused is because, in fact, this is a fragment that is missing the subject. If I would say, Professor Angel clapped loudly, it would make perfect sense to you, okay? And that would have, in fact, fixed the fragment, all right? When you're dealing with fragments, these phrases, again, are missing one of these three elements, and they don't make sense on their own. So after I've said this, probably what you're thinking is, well, that makes total sense, but of course, my sentences, I never create fragments. I'm sure I don't have this problem. It seems very simple. And I will tell you that students seem to get tripped up on a few different things, and they seem to not realize a few things. So let's talk about those. The first one is that students like to start sentences with what I call problem words. And problem words are those words that actually are connecting words, okay? And I have the examples up here, but, so, then, because. They are connecting words. They're meant to connect thoughts. They're conjunctions. And if you forget what a conjunction is, or you're not sure, go back and Google conjunction junction on YouTube, and it's a kind of a cute little thing from my childhood, showing my age. But their job is hooking up words and phrases, okay? And to start a sentence with these kind of words can lead to trouble because they may rely on meaning outside of the phrases, okay? Outside of the phrases. What am I talking about here? Well, look at this example. I went to bed late last night, then I woke up early and feel very tired, okay? Well, besides the fact it should say felt very tired, ladies and gentlemen, what is the problem here? Well, the problem very simply is that then I woke up early and felt very tired is a fragment. And that word then, as soon as I see that word, I think, uh-oh, because that word calls back to the phrase before it for the reader to fully understand it, okay? If you took that phrase away and just said, then I woke up early and felt very tired, you would be confused, right? You wouldn't know why. Well, what do you mean? And the reason is because this is a connecting phrase. It's calling on the phrase before it for it to have meaning. And quite frankly, you cannot do that. That is when a fragment is created, okay? It's missing the complete thought for it to make sense. Now, as I said, there's more than just kind of these kind of things to keep in mind. There's also an idea that some things may actually be complete sentences and appear to be fragments. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that some sentences may appear as though they're missing the subject, all right? And they're called commands. And this is when the subject is implied, okay? And the subject of these sentences is always you, okay? And let's just take an example. Can there be a one-word sentence? And the answer is, yeah, there can. Because I can make a one-word sentence by saying any of the following. Stop. Go. Okay? Who's the subject? You. You are the subject. All right? So you could revise it to say you stop, you go, but it's implied because it's a command, and it is, in fact, a complete sentence. Look at my example here. Go sit down. The subject, again, is you. You go sit down. However, it does not have to be there for it to be considered a complete sentence. So if on a quiz or in your writing you see these sorts of sentences, do not be alarmed and think, uh-oh, I created a fragment, because sometimes a subject can in fact be implied. However, it can only be implied when that subject is you. All right? Another thing I don't want you to be fooled by is fragment length. Now, what the heck does that mean? Well, when I give quizzes or when I see students writing, one of the things that seem to throw students off is if there's a very long phrase, they won't read it for comprehension purposes. They'll just think, oh, well, it's long, it has to be a sentence. And that is not always the case. Look at my example. The beautiful Labrador Retriever with the golden brown eyes. Well, that's relatively long, yes, but that whole entire thing is all part of the sentence. If I walked up to you and said this, you would say, well, what about the dog? What's the dog doing? You know, if it's missing the verb and the complete thought here. This whole phrase is nothing but an extended sentence. Okay, what you see there is telling us something about the Labrador, sure, but not what he or she is doing. So do not be fooled by the length of the fragment. When I give you a quiz, when you're looking at your own writing, don't assume because you have some long phrase that it's absolutely a sentence. You have to go back and you have to figure out what's missing, or if there is something missing. Does it make sense, and does it make sense on its own? So if you have a fragment or you find a fragment in your writing, what do? Well, you can easily fix a fragment using two methods. Okay? The first is to figure out what's missing and add it. Okay? Let's look at our example. The man no one liked. This is missing a verb. This is very similar to the sentence or the phrase I just showed you on the previous slide. All of this is just part of the subject. So you realize that you're missing the verb, you're missing the complete thought here. So I fixed it. The man no one liked lives in a log cabin. Okay, it gives us the verb and it gives us a complete thought. The other thing you can do is combine the fragment with a sentence before or after it. And that sometimes is really kind of commonsensical. And which one will you use? Well, which one seems to make more sense to you at the time? If you see a sentence before or after this fragment that it would make sense to combine, then that's what you do. If you don't, then you may just have to add the missing element. Let's look at our example here. I went to bed late last night, then I was tired all day long. Fixed, I went to bed late last night and then I was tired all day long. So you notice it just made sense for me to combine those two things, so that's what I did. So that's actually how you can fix a fragment if you would find it in your writing. So what can you take away from this PowerPoint? Well, remember that there are three elements of a complete sentence: subject, verb, complete thought. And if you want to determine if in fact a phrase is a complete sentence, you want to read the phrase by itself and determine if it stands alone. Remember, it cannot depend on a sentence before it, and it cannot depend on a sentence after it. All right? And finally, to fix a fragment, what you want to do is you either want to add the missing element or combine it with another sentence. All right? And those are really the kind of important things to take from this PowerPoint. So what can you do to prepare yourself to take a quiz on this information and to start integrating it into your writing? Well, first, as I always suggest, I do have the link to Grammar Bites. There are fragment exercises there, okay? The next thing I would highly suggest that you do, and that we will probably do in class together, is I would suggest you look at your own writing, okay? You check your writing for fragments, and you work on revising them. The only thing that's really going to help you identify fragments, if you really learn to read each sentence in your essay on its own. And now I know this sounds like it is a pain in the butt and that it'll take a long time. And I'll tell you that initially it probably will. However, as the times go on and as you write and as you get used to the way you write, you'll notice that you tend to do certain things that create fragments, and it'll become easier and easier for you to spot them. So what I would suggest that you do to study is, to review this PowerPoint, understand that your fragment quiz will be very simply to identify a fragment, to tell me what the 3 elements are of a complete sentence, to tell me if a series of phrases are sentences or fragments, and then you will be asked to fix a series of fragments. That is, you'll have to identify what they're missing and add something to make them a complete sentence. All right, thank you.